Hello and welcome to Understanding TVAAS. I'm Nancy Zambito. I'm currently Director of Team Training and District Support with the Tennessee Department of Education. I come to that position from a number of years teaching, being a school administrator, and most recently being a Director of Schools in Jackson-Madison County in Tennessee. Tennessee has been using value-added measures in education for more than 20 years. During that time, educators have used the reports in school improvement planning, identifying students who need academic interventions, and ensuring that instruction is effectively differentiated to meet the needs of students at all achievement levels. Recently, the Tennessee Educator Acceleration Model, that's TEAM, has placed increased emphasis on the value-added measures, which means that educators now have an even greater need to understand the statistical models and process for generating the value-added reporting. This session will address a few key questions. First, what is value-added, and how is it different from achievement measures? Why do we use it? And what do you need to know about the statistical models used to generate value-added measures in Tennessee? In the second part of the session, we will dig deeper into how the composites used in educator evaluations are calculated. Tennessee Value-Added Assessment System, TVAAS, is a statistical analysis of achievement data that reveals academic growth over time for students. TVAAS is a tool that gives feedback to school leaders and teachers on student progress and assesses the impact of teachers, schools, and districts on that progress. In education, value-added analyses are used to measure the change in academic achievement for groups of students from the end of one year or class to the next, as measured by TCAP or end-of-course assessments. Value-added measures take into account where each student is academically at the beginning of the school year, based on their own prior testing history. Using this information, along with the student's test scores at the end of the most recent school year, value-added analyses estimate the impact of a teacher, school, or district on the amount of progress students make from the beginning of the school year until they are tested. Because value-added measures are estimates of student progress, they offer insights into how effectively districts, schools, and teachers provide opportunities for students to grow academically. Measuring the impact of a teacher, school, or district requires a very sophisticated statistical model to produce the most reliable results. In a perfect world, standardized tests would be completely accurate measures of student achievement. Students would never miss the test, and they would never move from one school to another. In such a perfect world, using standardized test scores to estimate the impact a school or teacher has on student progress would be relatively simple. In the real world, however, test scores have measurement error. Some students miss each test, and students move between classrooms, schools, and districts. A great deal of work from both educators and psychometricians goes into the complex process of designing a standardized test and scaling the scores. The result of this effort is a well-designed test that does a good job of measuring what students know. But even a well-designed test is not a perfect measurement tool. Consider this example. Let's say we've decided to measure a student's height, and we want to do it as precisely as possible. Chances are our measurement would be pretty accurate. Measuring someone's height is simple, and there's not too much room for error in the process. While this one measure might not be exactly accurate, it would almost certainly be very close. The error around that measurement would be very small. Now let's say we want to measure what that same student knows in math. In other words, we want to measure the student's current achievement level. To make this measurement, we would administer a standardized test, and based on the test scaling units, we would get a score. But how would we know just how close that one score is to the student's true achievement level? What if the student didn't sleep well the night before, had trouble concentrating on the test, and did poorly as a result? On the other hand, what if the student guessed at quite a few answers that he didn't know and happened to get very lucky with those guesses? Is the test score then a true reflection of the student's achievement level? How would we know if this one score is higher or lower than it should have been? In Tennessee, value-added measurements are more commonly known as TVAAS, the Tennessee Value-Added Assessment System. Both TVAAS and achievement results are based on TCAP and end-of-course assessments, but they provide different kinds of information about student learning. Achievement is a measure of student mastery of specific standards, focusing on proficiency. It's a one-time snapshot of student knowledge and is important in assessing a student's college and career readiness. In comparison, TVAAS can measure changes in student learning within proficiency levels and can show the progress of groups of students over time. This graph shows the scale scores for two students, Hannah and Alexis. In 5th grade, Hannah's scale score is 410, slightly below proficient, while Alexis's scale score is 430, slightly above the proficient threshold. Which student has mastered the 5th grade standards? Because this is based only on proficiency, Alexis. Her score is above that required to show proficiency. Which student seems to have learned more in 5th grade? If we are only looking at the most recent test score, we can't answer that question. To answer it, we would need to consider more than just the student's 5th grade test scores. Looking at Hannah's and Alexis's scores over time, both testing histories show some variation. Alexis scored around 500 each year until 5th grade, when she scored 430. Although her scale score dropped, she is still rated proficient. Hannah's scale scores are all below proficient. Each year she scored around 275 until 5th grade, when her scale score rose to 410, just short of proficient. Based just on these scores, which student appeared to learn more in 5th grade? Hannah. Because we're not just looking at the current year's scores, we are able to track the girl's progress over time. Looking at student-level data in this way can be helpful in understanding the difference between achievement data and the progress measures for teachers, schools, and districts that appear in the TVAAS reporting. Together, achievement and TVAAS progress measures provide a more complete picture of student learning and the impact of teachers, schools, and districts. There is more than one way to calculate value added, and TVAAS is the Tennessee model.